This is Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust today this will be like a vitamin or a supplement for your mind and heart. And wherever you receive podcasts from, if you would please subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, leave a brief rating and a written review. It'll help other excellent people like you to be able to find this podcast. I want to talk to you for a moment about the subject of humility in leadership. There are obviously books written on the subject. There are seminars. There are even podcast episodes in many places where you can hear about this, oftentimes because the leader is the focus. Whether, again, you're leading in a volunteer organization, at work, at home, it really doesn't matter. Unfortunately, oftentimes the person who is in the leadership position is sort of put on a pedestal, not necessarily intentionally, it just sort of happens. And at times, there is a danger that if a person is given certain perks, certain influence, certain acknowledgments, that there is a tendency to become a little more prideful, to really begin to believe your press clippings, to get to the point that you begin to think, I really am someone special. I really can do certain things. And so the counterweight to all of that is we ought to not think more highly of ourselves than we should. We need to be grounded in reality. And we need to not just put on a spirit of humility. We truly need to be humble. So today we're going to talk about why and even some steps toward making sure that you're displaying humility genuinely and how it's done, and then, of course, reasons why it needs to be done. One thing that I want to say right at the beginning is you can't be a humble leader if you don't have integrity. Now, if your idea is that you're going to always be liked and everyone's always going to agree with you and they're going to love every decision that you've ever made, that just absolutely is setting yourself up for a fall, and no one can manage that and no one can live like that. But one giant step toward humility is being a woman or a man of integrity, your word being your bond, that you don't shade the truth or lie or deceive or manipulate, that who you are in public is the same person that you are in private. I think another way that will really help you, and we'll touch on this again, to really institute a practices of humility is to get the eyes off of yourself and what you want and what do you think and what's in this for me, but to really begin to say, how can I really promote and honor the people I serve, the people I work with, my colleagues? What can I do to help others' lives be easier and better? Another way would be just to simply, are you acknowledging people? Are you giving credit where credit is due? Do you try to take all the accolades for yourself, or do you genuinely know and understand that there are a lot of people who have helped and are helping? So promote others, acknowledge others, and then be an appreciative person. Be sure and say thank you and please and you're welcome. Please express to others your thankfulness, your gratitude for their job well done, for the fact that you would be literally unable to do all of the things you do if it weren't for the people surrounding you to help make you be the best that you can be. I think we all are shocked periodically when we hear of some leader who has abused their authority, and abuse can mean a lot of things, but a humble leader is not in a position to just benefit themselves, but you want to be a blessing to others and to move the organization forward. Nothing is more counterproductive than someone in a position of confidence and trust who abuses. And abuse can be mental, it can be physical, obviously it can be sexual, it can be spiritual. Don't just lord it over people. Rather than that, I think an antidote for becoming a leader who's in it just for themselves is to constantly look to promote and sing the praise of others. I'm not talking about making things up or creating untruths, but I'm talking about looking around and saying, you have done a splendid job. We couldn't do it without you. And from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you. Again, this is how you model integrity and trust, by giving people the idea that it's not all just about you. One of the ways that I can tell when I'm in conversations with people is what a person's view of themselves is. Are they able to admit their mistakes and their shortcomings? I remember being in an interviewing a situation where I was sort of observing, actually, and a group was interviewing a candidate. And someone asked the question, which it really amazes me in today's day and age, why anyone would be surprised and not see that this question is going to be asked. And it's simply the question, what is your strengths? Well, the candidate went on and on and on in great detail with a flurry of adjectives describing their strengths. And again, just as everyone kind of knows that question is going to come in an interview format, it would also seem to me that we would also know that the corresponding, almost opposite question is also going to be asked. Display and tell us, what are your weaknesses? What are some of the failures? And obviously the person had that deer in the headlight look. They were scrambling and thinking about any mistake they had ever made in their entire life or anything that didn't work out. They sort of stammered around. Now, this is not exactly what they said, but this is exactly my interpretation of what they said. As they hemmed and hawed and thought and reflected, the answer came out, at least interpretively, this way. You know, my main weakness is I don't have any weaknesses. And I'm wondering if we feel that if we admit we've made mistakes, if we admit we said it's something dumb, if we admit we went down the wrong trail a time or two, or that I have some shortcomings, there are areas of my life upon which I am still a work in progress and I'm still trying to overcome. I think there's a certain leadership attitude that feels that it is detrimental to own shortcomings or mistakes, to not admit that you have weaknesses, to not appear to anyone that you aren't 100% buttoned up and in control. But a humble leader knows, first of all, that they do have shortcomings and that they can't do everything as well as some others can. I think a humble leader is also the first to take responsibility. You know, if it's something you were in charge of, if it's something you oversaw and it didn't work out, quit looking to blame someone. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite definitions of a leader is someone who takes responsibility but doesn't cast blame. Meaning, you need to be in control, but you need to admit, you know, I take responsibility. I'm the leader. Even though you may not have particularly weighed in on the decision at hand, you are still in that position. So just make sure you claim the responsibility. But oftentimes I also find the reverse is true, that many leaders are looking for anything that's going positively within their organization, and they get to the head of the line and take credit for everything. I think if you're a humble leader, you're going to be one of the last ones to take credit. Give your team credit. Give your staff credit. Give your business the credit. You don't have to always be the one who gets the pat on the back. Everyone knows that you're in charge, and if there have been a successful season where you are, that you do get a lot of that credit. But don't seize the credit yourself. I really think that servant leadership really is what Robert Greenleaf was talking about in his book, Servant Leadership. And you know, there's much discussion nowadays on being a servant leader and what all that means. But it simply means that the people who have a sense of humility and are truly a servant leader, that we are constantly trying to get the spotlight off of ourselves and onto others and to focus on the contributions and even the needs, wants, dreams, and aspirations of those around us. The other thing that I have seen about a humble leader is a humble leader has some reserves of inner strength. That's why we spend time on this podcast talking about make sure you're building yourself. Make sure you're exercising. Make sure you understand you are a spiritual being. You're an intellectual being. Yes, there are some professional competencies that you must excel at and get better in, but you need to have some inner strength, some integrity, some ideas of these are areas in my life in which I will not compromise. I've already highlighted it, but again, a humble leader is someone who is going to say, my bad, I take credit. I thought it was going to go differently. I thought it was going to work out better than it did, and it didn't, and so it's on me. Don't blame others. One of the greatest things, a compliment, and it's really a wise thing to do anyway, is to seek input from others. Always remember that no one of us, regardless of who you are, no one of us is as smart as all of us, and there's a reason that we've been in community, and there's a reason we're surrounded by a team. And you might just say, here's where we need to go, gang. Here's where we need to be moving. What are some steps that you would help us with? What do you see that we might need to do? This is a reflection on your own character when you ask others for their opinions and seek input. Some of the best ideas are going to come from people in your company, in your volunteer agency, because they live with it, they work with it, they have to deal with both the up and the downside. And so it's really a wonderful thing if on the front end you begin to ask them. One of the things that a humble leader really knows themselves. So if someone asks you what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, you ought not to be frozen in fear. You know what they are, and it's okay to admit it. Everyone has one. There's one that's a little bit harder to articulate. I'm not exactly sure how to put it, but a humble leader is a real leader. I mean, I guess you could say it's integrity, it's genuineness, but people know whether you're genuine or not. It's almost like people have a hypocrisy meter. And if someone is trying to project themselves to do or to be something they're not, people have a sense of honing in and really figuring that out quite simple. Are you genuine? Again, it goes back to what we've already said on this podcast. One of the greatest tools for proving this is, are you the same in private as you are in public? That's the compliment I used to give to my wife all the time when people tell me how much they enjoy her. And I would say and do say about her, she is the same person at home with us as she is out in public. I think a humble leader is a respectful leader. I know that there's some image out there of the hard-driving, hard-bitten boss who barks out orders and orders people around and treats people with disrespect. One of the things that I enjoy observing, I don't know that I enjoy, but I especially pay attention to when I'm having a meal with someone or with someone in a social setting, is to see how they treat people who have no mechanism nor ability to strike back. And how you treat people in that situation is one of the most revealing things about your character, who you are. If you're not nice to everyone, regardless of what you think, you are not a nice person. If you're not nice to the least and the best, and you're not just nice to those who you think can help you, but you're nice to everyone. Need to treat every person because every person is worthy of respect, and it has nothing to do with what they do vocationally. A humble leader really knows their limits. A lot of times, the same people who don't know their strengths and weaknesses also fail to understand that they have limitations. If nothing else, you have a limitation in time. No matter how great a leader you may be, you still are limited by the same 24-hour period that everyone else is. But all of us have limitations. Don't see them as a threat. See them as an opportunity to surround yourself with talented people who can come alongside and help you where you need the help, and likewise, you can help them as well. I think we need humble leaders today because we need some women and men to step forward and to be the model of what this looks like. I can give podcasts, I can give you books to read, I can tell you take this seminar, but the greatest way to learn humility in leadership is in fact when we see it modeled by someone up close and personal. Now, friends, a lot of us have many things on our plate, and it's very easy to forget some of these. That's why we need to always spend some time in reflection. Am I the kind of a leader who likes the perks and wants everybody to know that I'm in charge, and am somewhat affronted if people don't recognize who I am, my title, my position? Or am I just one of those humble servants who have gotten where they've gotten in life because a lot of people have helped us to get there? I think we would have a wonderful revolution in the world if our leaders began to really model what it means to be a humble leader. You have been listening to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust today this has been like a vitamin or a supplement for your mind and heart. And wherever you receive podcasts from, if you would subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, leave a rating and a brief written review, it will enable other excellent people just like you to be able to locate this podcast. Remember, my leadership friend, you are doing better than you think you are. You really are. And until next time, this is Dr. Ron saying, have a great and blessed day.